It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, October 17th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is hoping the Flyers can get one back against the Seattle Kraken tonight.
Don't see why not.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter at Locked On Flyers as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You can find us over on YouTube, or on the SiriusXM app, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, and you'll get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It was a travel day for the Flyers to get to Seattle. So as of recording, no lineup updates. Certainly hope Emil Andre gets in this one, but history so far has suggested that that is not to be the case.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, so we will find that out a little bit later. Flyers are 1-1-1 to start the season. um, even down the board here, one game left in this road trip. We've got one more after dark to get through, and I'm so glad that we are gonna start having some home games after that. Facing the Seattle Kraken, they had their own road trip to deal with and are just getting home. So this is their first of 5 home games that they will be having after their road trip. So far, they're 2-2. They've lost to the Blues and Stars, and then one versus the Minnesota Wild and the Nashville Predators. So far, they're healthy as it goes. Dunn had missed a game, but he returned in the last game against the Preds. That game against the Preds was real good for them. They won 7-3. There's one empty netter. They scored 4 goals in the third period, where they had, a situation where they take a lead, the Preds would tie it up. Take a lead, Preds would tie it up.
Sounds a
But
little
then,
familiar.
yeah, yeah, and then they just stepped on the gas in the third period. And I think people had some really high expectations for Nashville this season, who are
I
taking a
wasn't as
little.
high on them. I had them as a wild card team just getting in. I think people overvalued them, honestly.
Well, I think they're taking a little while to get the chemistry there, and that's what's going
Sure.
on. There's so many changes. I think it's
hmm
just going to take them some time.
I still don't
But
like UC Saros as a goalie. I never will.
well, that is a take. But as far as the Kraken go, I think that, they were able to capitalize on that to some degree. And, again, once they stepped on the gas in the third period, they really took over. They had 7 different goal scorers in that game too, which is something that's really good for a team. When you score that many goals and you can get it from up and down the lineup, I think that's important.
Yeah, something that wasn't going to happen under Dave Haxtell the way he played. Shane Wright's up there playing with him. We'll see if he starts to
Mhm.
get hot or not. He's learning, so that's fine. We know what that's like. They have some guys that you wouldn't expect that, like Riker Evans, who I really like. Like, this is a guy who has really good offensive game from the blue line, and Montour. I mean, Montour, we know. So,
Mhm.
those two guys I think are a big key, because we could talk about a lot of the forwards, but they have more offense. They have more push from the blue line than they used to. So this is a game where, like, with the Flyers playing against the Oilers, honestly, their only offensive defenseman is Bouchard. It's obvious when he's out there, but these guys have 2 or 3, Vince Dunn's included in that.
Yep.
So this is where it gets a little tricky, because you might feel like you can handle the forwards, but then you've got these guys too.
Yeah, and I think Alexiak is nothing to sneeze at either. That middle pairing
Yeah.
is very good for the Kraken there. They've had some interesting stats so far. So they're getting a lot of high danger chances, and their ratio of high danger chances for to against is really, really good. So they're not allowing, to your point about their strong defense, they're not allowing high danger chances as much as they're getting. And you always want to be on the right side of that stat, which I thought, again, small sample sizes this early, but I think it just kinda shows what kind of structure they have right now. And if you look at the, special teams of the 2 teams, the Flyers have had a lot more special teams time
You
than
think?
in thus far. I mean, it's been a little nuts, I gotta say. So the Flyers have had 15 power play chances and scored 4 times. The Kraken have had 9 and scored once. So the Flyers are doing better, but
Mhm.
they've had more chances. So,
Right.
take that how you will. On the penalty kill side of things, similar. Flyers shorthanded 14 times and have allowed 2, but scored 1 shorthanded goal. The Kraken were again shorthanded 9 times and have allowed 2 goals so far. So the Flyers penalty kill is definitely better than the Kraken penalty kill, but the Flyers also need to probably stay out of the box a little bit more.
Yeah, because it seems like, the Kraken don't take too many penalties, and
Yep.
they're gonna handle it 5 on 5. The big thing for me is, let's have a game where if Jamie Alexiak, takes a big run at, let's just say,
Mhm.
Michkov or Luchenko, that Sean Couturier is not the guy to fight. Now, I'm not saying bring Nick Delorier back.
Or just
I'm
throw a
just
hit instead of
right,
getting in a fight.
right. I'm just saying, let Hathaway handle it. That's what a
Yeah,
Hathaway's there for. If Hathaway blocks a lot of shots and he fights, that's great. That's the guy who should be doing that until Nick
yeah,
Seeler's back, and then he can block more shots too. I don't think he'll make it back for that game, but he's close.
yeah, I bet he gets in, at the first home game. That
Yeah.
would be that would be my prediction there. Interestingly, both teams have struggled a bit at the faceoff dot. The Kraken are 45.4%, Flyers are 45.9%. So both teams under that 50% threshold significantly that you wanna see.
Well, they
So
both
may
they both have centers that are young, uh,
Mhm.
quite a few of them, and so it's not surprising.
Yeah, yeah. So there's some opportunity here for the Flyers to, maybe score on some set plays here if they can win these faceoffs and
But
get the right matchups. But
but
unfortunately, they don't have a say in that.
right, but they do have one face-off shark in Chandler Stevenson, and so
Mhm.
he's gonna be the guy like Draisaitl was the guy. So you are gonna have to worry. You'd have to try with Frost and Couturier, and hopefully one of them does well against them.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Kraken have made some adjustments and they changed up their lines a little bit against Nashville to what they had been previously. So Stevenson had been playing with Burakovsky and Schwartz, and they had no goals thus far. And so they switched it out. So it was Schwartz, Stevenson, Bjorkstrand, and they have 2 goals for and 1 goal against. So
Yeah.
I think, it's a little bit of an adjustment for the Kraken, but I think they have gotten rewarded from switching things up in their lineup.
At home, he's 60.9%. So that's a pretty good clip.
Mhm. Yep. So that'll be an important thing to look out for. Jordan Everly leads the team in points. He's got 3 goals. That's his entire points. He doesn't have assists.
He's a
So,
clutch goal scorer though, so he's that
yep,
guy that he can hang in the weeds and then kill you in the third period.
absolutely. For goaltending, I think it's been interesting. And, we said they're kind of a weird team yesterday, and on their goalie rotation, they've split the games evenly thus far. So each goaltender, Grubauer and Joey Decord, have played 2 games. Decord, who played against the Predators, so I'm guessing we'll see Grubauer in
Yeah.
this one if the pattern holds. Grubauer had 21 saves on 23 shots in 1 game and 22 saves on 25 shots, but lost those games. Meanwhile, Joey Decord, 30 saves on 33 shots, 34 saves on 38 shots. So ostensibly played worse, but the Kraken won those games. And that's what's been so weird about the Kraken so
Yeah.
far, right?
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think that we're going to see uh, Ersson for the next 3.
You think so?
I don't think Fedotov's getting in there because there's time in between on both, and there's multiple days uh, from the Canucks game to the Capitals game.
Yeah, and I think that obviously Erson's gonna be in the home opener, right?
Yeah.
It's like a no-brainer, and then, yeah, Fedotov won't get in until the away game for the back-to-back against the Caps. That's
Yep.
probably a
That's
fair
what I think his
assessment
next game is. Yeah.
there. So, would not be shocked if that's how it goes. So, yeah, I think that Grubauer is likely going to be in net. Happy to be wrong there. I don't think it matters that much for the Kraken.
I mean, they're both about the same. I mean,
Mhm.
Decord's a good up and coming goalie too. Grubauer used to have that 1A ability to some degree. I'm not sure he's quite that now. So yeah,
Well,
it probably
that's
doesn't matter.
why it seems like they're just sharing goaltending duties,
Right.
and there isn't a 1A, 1B. It's
No.
just 2 goalies.
Ride the hot
So,
hand. They're gonna do
yep.
that.
Yep, I bet. So I think that, the Flyers, I think, have a real opportunity here to win this game. I think they can win this game. They're just gonna have to be very strategic and have to tighten up defensively the way we have talked about
Well,
for the
they
last
haven't
couple of
been
games.
able to tighten up defensively for a full game. I mean, that's what's plaguing them.
That's the
And I
crux.
that yeah, and I can't blame it just on Nick Seeler being out. I can't. So and I think it's a philosophy thing. I do, because they did change it up in the Oilers game. So we'll see.
Yep. All right. We are going to switch gears and talk about prospects coming up. And the CHL and NCAA are working on a new deal about eligibility that will affect development and all of this. So we're going to talk about that and then start digging into Flyers prospects coming up next.
Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, forget having to have dozens of tabs open. You could check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I would go with like the 49ers on a money line. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com.
On tomorrow's show, of course, we will break down the Flyers versus Kraken game and so much more. Turning our attention to this new proposal by the NCAA to change their eligibility rules for hockey players. The proposal is that it would enable prospects who participate in major junior hockey or on pro teams to retain their eligibility as long as they're not paid more than actual and necessary expenses as part of that participation. And that's a quote. So if they're paid essentially like a stipend,
Yeah.
they can retain their NCAA eligibility. But if they're paid more than that, then no. But this will really allow players who play junior hockey when they're, before they're 18, 19 years old to then transfer to college if they want. So, Russ, obviously you're deep in prospect land. Like, what's the big, like, net effect of this potential rule change?
Well, there's a few things. So guys won't play like probably 2 years in the USHL anymore. I mean, it shouldn't affect the American flow of players, but with
Mhm.
Euros, it definitely could. Uh, we're starting to see more Euros in college anyhow. But the big thing is really focusing on the CHL part of it. Um, that what'll happen there is there's essentially like 64 schools that are eligible to get players through the portal. And now you're going to probably, I would think in the next couple of years, it's going to be hundreds
Yeah.
because you're going to have probably 2 or 3 on a team, easy, of guys that, you know, and the reason I brought up like Americans and imports is simply because there's a limit there. You know, definitely for imports. I'm not sure what the American limit is. I don't know the rules inside and out that much, but there's definitely an import rule. So that's something where you have to look at that and say, all right, let's see how that affects it. But as far as, you know, players, this should have happened all along. Like it just should
Right.
have, and it didn't. And there's already, you know, I think we talked about it already. The thing that started skirting the system was with European players. Like that's where all of a sudden, like Tom Willander um, was able to go from the SHL getting paid to play for Boston University. Well, how do you do that, Rachel? How is that legal? So
Right.
then, you know, the agents and stuff for this, you know, CHL players are like, well, we have guys here that, you know, played one game, got cut, and then they can't go to college because they say no eligibility. So now at least it increases the eligibility part, which is great, and it's going to make college hockey even stronger than it is right
Right.
now. So that's going to be a big thing. And look, players are going to get more of an education. You can get an education playing in the CHL with the stipend and all that. But if you know if their parents want them to come here and get an education because there's a certain school that has a certain thing and they happen to have a hockey team, well, you know, then you're in good shape.
Now, I want to make it clear that if you're a junior hockey player who signs an ELC, you still lose your college eligibility.
Correct.
Right. So if you have a pro contract, then that's it. Right. Whereas, like,
Yes.
if you go
Because
straight to
that's bigger money.
college,
Yeah.
right? If you go straight to college, you can sign, and like you can slide. So
Yeah.
I think that will still be in place. I think it is interesting because there's a couple of Russian prospects have come over to the USHL already
Hmm. Yes.
because they want to get over to North America as part of this feeder
And this
system
has
to,
been happening
get.
for a while too, though. Like Danil
Mhm.
Gushkin's playing in San Jose, and I watched him 3 years ago in the USHL. But there's going to be more now,
Yeah.
unless they close the pipeline. Like you never know what's going to happen in Russia. We never can count on anything. But yeah, so that is an interesting. The other thing that affects this is for the schools that happen to get NIL deals with companies that share it with the team. Well, now if I go to a team, you know, that shares in an NIL, I could get a little extra money in my pocket while I'm playing.
Yeah, so that'll be, another incentive for CHL guys to transfer to a college when they turn 18 or 19 years old.
Correct.
I think so I think it'll really affect the CHL and the competitiveness. And I really wonder if, because if guys are gonna bail sooner and go to college, like um are guys gonna want to stay there? And is it gonna become a younger league, a strictly younger league, and you won't have any overagers in the CHL anymore?
No, I mean you'll still have, you know, some of the stars will stay. You know, my guess is if I were the commissioner there, I might have a few more guys coming now on exceptional status. So, you know,
Mm,
you can go in really young there
that's
and
fair.
then, you know, you can get 3 years out of a guy on exceptional status. So if you know they might loosen the restrictions on that. That's a way to fight back at it. So we'll see if that's a thing. But yeah, I think you know it's best for the players, and that's the most important thing here. The players are going to win out because the players are going to get to go where they want to go. And you know, like if you're on a stacked team and you're not getting the right playing time, this gives you an option.
Right, and I think it'll strengthen NCAA hockey in general. Like, I think
Yes,
it'll make the programs, I think some parity might start happening because there's only gonna be a certain number of spots for these very talented hockey
it's going to
players.
take a little
And
while. It's going to take a
yeah.
little while. I had some discussions when I was at the USHL Fall Classic, you know, informal discussions with people at colleges. And let's just say they're getting ready for it, especially the smaller ones, because they're going to benefit, like you said.
Yep. Yep.
There's going to
I
be a
think it's
trickle down.
Yeah, absolutely. Because smaller schools are gonna get players that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise,
Right.
and it'll give them some opportunities, and, like, to me, that means down the road, is the Frozen Four gonna get expanded? This is, like, all way down the road, but this is, like, things that
Hmm.
could happen down the
Yeah. I,
road.
I don't think it'll get expanded. I just think that league will get stronger. and these conferences will get stronger. And, but again, there's going to be crazy stuff like in football with guys switching teams in the portal. Like that's just the
Yep.
thing now. So, if you're a guy just on any team and you're getting third line minutes and you on a great team, like let's just, say you're on a perennial Frozen Four team, you might just leave and go to another school where you can get top line minutes and just walk through the portal and it's done. So we're going to see some of that too. So, some guys are going to, trade places, and teams don't generally love that. They like to have guys guided to certain programs so they can call those coaches that they know and keep that up. Now the teams are gonna have to branch out and get to know more of the big other schools because they know the big schools. They all see those coaches, they all talk to those coaches, but some of the other smaller ones, not as much.
Yeah, it's all very fascinating, and very curious to see how all of this plays out. Again, they're having the official vote on it in November, so stay tuned on that. In the meantime, we do want to check in with our Flyers prospects as they're getting their seasons going as well. We're going to do that coming up next. Some of the best concerts of the year take place in the fall, and it's my favorite time to head to a show. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. My favorite part of the app is that it's great for getting notified about super deals so you know you're getting the best bang for your buck. Best of all, they have all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout when you activate the feature, and your tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through email. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks invented the FlexPay, which means you can still cash out of your lineup if your lineup isn't perfect. You could double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money as quick as 15 minutes. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. PrizePicks, run your game.
So I think the prospect that has been generating the most buzz right now for the Flyers is goaltender Yegor Zavgarin.
Yeah.
And as we know, he was returned to SKA from Sochi last week. And in the meantime, he has played in 3 games. He came in relief in 1 game for 12 minutes, 48 seconds, 3 saves on 4 shots. But a good solid start. And he's played 2 full games since then. One where he saved 35 on 37 shots in a 5-2 win. It was the first win for that team. He played on Tuesday again in a 3-2 win where he had 28 saves on 30 shots in a game that went to overtime. So he is coming out of the gates real strong for the big club.
Yeah, I mean, I started speaking to some experts about him a couple years ago. We've mentioned him on the show. He's who the Flyers, I think, deem as their number one of the future. That's why everybody's on a 2-year deal right now. So, so far so good. He's having a good year. The fact that he's playing up in, in the big club now, that's great.
Yeah, if he's the goaltender of the future, I think it's fine that he's over there now. And as long as he's playing with the big club and being successful, I think that's the most important thing. But the Flyers and Russian goaltenders like becoming a thing is absolutely wild to me. But here we are.
Yeah, they're moving, changing with the times.
Yep. Yep. Our London Knights boys have gotten their season going. Each of them have played 3 games. Denver Barkey was back on the ice and made his season debut in the same game as Oliver Bonk. So Barkey has 2 assists in 3 games played. Bonk has a goal and 3 assists in 3 games played. So it seems like they're picking up where they left off to some degree.
Yeah, I think Bonk is doing better than where he left off, and I think Barkey's doing a little less because I think he's still going to take some time to really recover. That that could really zap you. You know, you don't know when
Yeah.
it's going to hit again because it threw off your training and everything else. So you know, he could hit a wall and have to sort of recover from that at some point during the season. So you know, I'm not putting too much pressure on him this year.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, be tracking his minutes at the beginning part of the season and see if it slowly increases over time and how they're managing it. I think that'll be really important. Carson Bjarnason so far has played 4 games. He's 1-3 with a 3.54 goals against average. I I feel bad for him in a lot of ways. The other goalie on the team is 3-1. And so I don't know if it's the goaltending. I don't know if it's his play. I don't know if it's the team play here. But I think that, Bjarnason really has to like improve his numbers
He
to
does,
some degree to get more starts.
or to get traded.
That's yeah, ultimately. Ultimately, because it seems like they're gonna go with the other guy for now.
Right,
But
right.
we'll see how that goes. Spencer Gill, off to another great start. We know what the Q is and what it
Yeah,
isn't,
yeah, yeah. You can't
but
worry about points.
right, but he's got 4 assists in 6 games. They did play after we recorded this episode and, before you're listening to this, but they're playing back-to-backs this weekend, versus Valdor. So a lot of opportunity to see him play, and I think he's just chugging along, and we'll see how he does this season.
Yeah, I expect he'll have a good year, but I'm not going to pay much attention to the points. It's everything else.
Right. Right, exactly. Carter Sotheran playing out in Portland in the WHL, 3 assists in 7 games played to start. Portland lost their last couple of games after winning 4 in a row, so they're in a little bit of a dip right now. But I think, Sotheran just has to be like the number 1, number 2 defenseman on that team this year, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And he missed training time due to his medical condition, so it's going to
Yep.
take him a little while to ramp up, but that's fine. He's doing fine.
Yep. The guy that I'm really excited about in a niche way is Heikki Ruohonen.
Mhm.
And he's doing real well with Dubuque in the USHL, one of our 2 prospects in the USHL right now. He's got 3 goals and 4 assists. So he's a point per game right now in the 7 games. He's got points in 5 straight games, including 1 game he had a goal and 2 assists. Um, you love to see it. And we saw that he had some really raw skill and raw talent when he was at camp. And he just needs to hone that and be consistent and then get stronger.
Yeah, I watched him in the Fall Classic. I thought he was pretty good. I think there's some really great shifts that he has, and then I think there's ones that he needs to work on it. And so, yeah, that's he's doing terrific. I like what I see. I'll definitely be checking in on him.
Yeah, you saw Austin Moline as well,
I
right?
did. Yep. Saw Moline. He was, like I said, really good right out of the gate. Again, I'm not looking for him being a high point guy. So like the 3 points in 7 games to me is good. You know, I liked his skating. I liked his first pass. I felt his defense was good. He had an active stick. He would use his body. You know, I feel like he's got the makings to be like a bottom pairing defenseman. That's what I think he could be if he makes it to the NHL. And he's a 7th round pick. So you get a 7th
Yep.
rounder to, play in the NHL in the 3rd pair, you're doing things right.
Yeah, I think so. It's really hard to talk about the college guys because they've all only played like 1 or 2
I
games.
know.
However, I do wanna bring up Cole Knuble because
Mhm.
he's unsigned, and I think this is a big year for him on that front, like, if he's gonna get a contract or not. He's at Notre Dame, and they've played 2 games. He's in the 2C spot for Notre Dame, which is I think, a really good position for him to be on in
Yeah.
terms of ice time, in terms of situational play. Notre Dame is 2-0. He's got 3 goals and an assist in those 2 games. He got Big Ten first star of the week for the week, which is a really good way to start the season. So hopefully he can continue this momentum and get himself a contract.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching him since 21, 22, and he's still only 20. So
Hmm.
I think this is a guy that if he has a good year, yeah, you sign him.
Yeah, I think so. We could talk about Devin Kaplan or Alex Bump, Noah Powell. Those are like our other main college guys right now, but I just feel like it's kind of early to be
I mean,
talking about them.
here's what I would say. Kaplan's got to show me more this year offensively. He's got to, because
Right.
even if he's going to be a fourth line guy in the NHL, you got to show me something offensively to be able to
Yeah.
show that you can get some points. And Bump was underwhelming, I felt. I feel like he's been underwhelming even in camp. I feel like even the way he was sort of like working with the media question wise, he was acting more like,
Aloof, I would say.
yeah, more aloof. That's a good way to put it. And so like he's really got something to prove to me too.
Yeah, well, so far he's been the left winger on their first line
Which is
for
good.
Western Michigan. Yeah, which is good, but I think he's going to have to be an impact player there for sure if you're going to maintain your position on the first line on a team like Western Michigan.
Yeah, he'll be 21 in November. So like he's older than Knuble. And so this has to be a good year for him. If he because let's see, one, yeah, I mean he can go back and he can become one of those older college players. But the more years then that he plays in college, the less interested probably the Flyers will be with him over time. So if
Yeah.
he doesn't capture their imagination this year, sign and play with the Phantoms next year, then he's behind.
Jack Berglund, moving over to our European players, has been spending some time in the U20 league, some time in the SHL. Wasn't in the lineup for the most recent game for the SHL club, but he's also been playing in Champions League games with them. So it could just be a lineup
I think
balancing
that's what it
thing
is.
over
That's
there.
true. He's playing, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, but in the U20 level, he's got 12 points in 8 games, which is probably why they bumped him up to the
Correct.
SHL.
Yeah, he's
Um,
definitely a killer at his own level there. No
yeah,
question.
yeah. So that's good to see. Santeri Solku is in Mestis, and he's got 8 points, 5 goals, 3 assists in 6 games, points in the last 3 games. So he's off to a pretty solid start. Your favorite, Alex Ciernik, is playing in the second
I
tier
like his
league.
personality. I remember his draft
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
All that was great.
He's playing in the second tier in Sweden, and he's got 8 points in 8 games so far. So, we'll see if he gets a chance, to move up to the SHL anytime soon.
Yeah, that's the problem is like he's 20, and if
Hmm.
he doesn't move up this year, then he's behind too.
That'll be a problem. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's kind of a little roundup of our prospects and how they're doing so far. We will check in with them again in a little bit more detail as we get more games under their belts, and we'll start covering new draft prospects
Yeah,
over
yeah.
the next little bit as well. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with a recap of the Kraken game and our thoughts for the week heading into, the first home games of the season. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions, let us know on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey, become a fantasy hockey expert, and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey over on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.